Chapter 5. The Elements Support a Theme. To write a mighty book, you must choose a mighty theme. Herman Melville. Mere games. Great themes and deep meanings are often associated with literature or with great works of art. Is it pretentious for a mere game to aspire to the same levels of greatness? As game designers, we must confront the painful truth that many people view games, in all their forms, as meaningless diversions. Usually when I press people who hold on to this view, I can get them to admit some game that is very important to them. Sometimes it is a sport, either one they have played or one they watch religiously. Sometimes it is a card or board game that formed the cornerstone of their relationship with someone important to them. Sometimes it is a video game with a storyline and characters that they identify with. When I point out the hypocrisy of games as meaningless, but a game as meaningful, they explain, well, it really wasn't the game I cared about. It was the experience that went with the game. But as we discussed, experiences aren't just associated with games at random, but are what emerge when players interact with a game. The parts of the experience that are important to people, such as the drama of a sporting event, the camaraderie between bridge players, or the rivalry of chess enthusiasts, all are determined by the design of the game. Some people make the argument that games, especially video games, cannot be deep and meaningful because they are simply too primitive in nature. The same argument was made about film in the beginning of the 20th century when it was silent and black and white. As technology increased, this argument faded away, and the same is happening for games. In the 1970s, video games were so simplified as to be almost completely abstract. Today, they can include text, pictures, video, sound, music, and more. As technology advances, more and more aspects of human life and expression will be integrated into games. There's nothing that can not be part of a game. You can be putting a painting or a radio broadcast or movie into a game, but you cannot put a game into these other things. All these other types of media, and all media that is to come, are subsets of games. At their technological limit, games will subsume all other media. Really, the problem is that games have only recently emerged as anything like a serious medium of expression. It will take time for the world to grow used to this idea, but we have no reason to wait. We can create games with powerful themes right now. But why? Why do this? Out of a selfish need for artistic expression? No, because we are designers. Artistic expression is not our goal. Our goal is to create powerful experiences. It is possible to create games that do not have themes or that have very weak themes. However, if our games have unifying, resonant themes, the experiences we create will be much stronger. Unifying themes. The primary benefit of basing your design around a single theme is that all of the elements of your game will reinforce one another, since they will all be working toward a common goal. Sometimes it is best to let a theme emerge as you are creating the game. The sooner you have settled on a theme, the easier things will be for you because you will have an easy method of deciding if something belongs in your game or not. If it reinforces the theme, it stays, but if it doesn't, it goes. There are 2 simple steps to using a theme to strengthen the power of your game's experience. Step 1. Figure out what your theme is. And step 2. Use every means possible to reinforce that theme. Sounds easy, but what is a theme? The theme is what your game is about. It is the idea that ties your entire game together, the idea that all the elements must support. If you don't know what your theme is, it's very likely that your game is not engaging people as much as it could. Most game themes are experience-based. That is, the goal of the design is to deliver an essential experience to the player. Designer Rich Gold describes an elementary example of theming in his book, The Plentitude. As a child, he had a book about elephants. The idea of the book was simple: to deliver an experience to children that let them understand what elephants were. In a sense, you could say that theme was, what are elephants? So, step 1 is done. This brings us to step 2. Use every means possible to reinforce that theme. The authors did the obvious. The book contained text about elephants and pictures of elephants, but they took it a step further and cut the entire book, cover and pages, into the shape of an elephant as well. At every turn, you need to look for opportunities to reinforce your theme in clever and unexpected ways. Let me give a more detailed example based on a virtual reality game I worked on for Disney called Pirates of the Caribbean: Battle for the Buccaneer Gold. Our team, the Disney VR studio, was given the assignment of creating an interactive adaptation of the popular Pirates of the Caribbean theme park ride, which can be seen in various incarnations at all the Disney parks. We knew we were going to put it in a computer augmented virtual environment, or cave, which is basically a small room with 3D projections on the walls at Disney Quest, which is Disney's virtual reality center at Disney World. And the experience had to be about 5 minutes long, but no storyline or specific game goals had been set. We already had the beginnings of a theme. This attraction was going to be about pirates, which narrowed things down, but we were hoping to be more specific. What point of view did we want to take about pirates? There are several we could have taken. A historical documentary about pirates, a battle between competing pirate ships, a search for hidden pirate treasure. Pirates are villains and must be destroyed. Several others came to mind as well. You can see that even with something as narrow as pirates, we still didn't really have a theme because there are many possible experiences around the idea of pirates that we could create. We started doing research, looking for game ideas, aesthetic ideas, and hopefully a clear, unifying theme. We'd read a lot about the history of pirates, and we looked at pirate-themed video games other people had made. We talked to people who had been involved in the creation of the original Pirates of the Caribbean ride. We got lots of good details, but we're not getting much closer to a theme. One day, we all piled into a car and headed down to Disneyland to study the ride up close. We rode the ride dozens of times before park hours, frantically scribbling notes and snapping pictures. There is a huge amount of detail in the ride. It is incredibly compelling. We could see that details were going to be very important. But what about the story? Weirdly, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride doesn't tell a coherent story. It just features several immersive tableaus of pirates doing pirate things. In a sense, this is a real strength. The story is left to the writer's imagination. So, we learned some good things from writing, but we still didn't have a theme. We interviewed park employees, and when the park opened, we chatted with guests about their feelings about the ride. We got lots of great details about how the ride looks, how it makes us feel, and what their favorite parts were, but none of it really clued us into a solid point of view for our theme. On the way home in the car, as we talked over the thousands of details we had observed, we fretted a little that we didn't have a clear path forward. As we sat and thought, it was almost impossible not to hum the catchy theme song from the ride, having heard it so many times. Yo ho, a pirate's life for me. And suddenly, it became clear. The Pirates of the Caribbean ride is not about pirates, it's about being a pirate. The whole goal of the ride is to fulfill the fantasy of what it is like to throw aside the rules of society and just start being a pirate. It might sound obvious in retrospect, but this shift in our thinking crystallized everything. This was not a historical recreation, and it was not about destroying pirates. It was about fulfilling the pirate fantasy that everyone has bubbling just below the surface. And what better way to create this feeling of being a pirate than through an immersive, interactive experience? We now had our experience-based theme, the fantasy of being a pirate. And so step 1 was completed. We knew our theme. Now for step 2, use every means possible to reinforce that theme. We really did work hard to use everything we could to do just that. Some examples include cave shape. In the past, we had used square and hexagonal caves. We created a new 4-screen cave shape that was better suited to a pirate ship simulation. Stereo optics. Not every cave experience uses stereo optics, but we chose to do so because of the sense of depth they give. Letting your eyes focus on infinity really helps us make you feel like you are out at sea. Modified 3D glasses. Many off-the-shelf 3D glasses for theaters have blinders on the side to reduce distractions when watching a movie. We knew that a person's sense of motion is strongly influenced by their peripheral vision, so these blinders were a problem. They were detracting from our theme since players weren't getting enough of a sense of sailing at sea. We made arrangements with the manufacturer to have the blinders cut off. Motion platform. We wanted to give the feeling of a rocking, swaying boat. Motion platform seemed like a good idea, but what kind? Eventually, we custom built a platform using pneumatics because it felt like the most ship at sea. Interface. Part of the pirate fantasy is steering a ship, and part of it is firing cannons. We could have used joysticks or other off-the-shelf hardware, but that wouldn't be very good theming. Instead, the ship is steered with a ship's wheel, and we had real metal cannons that players would use to aim and fire. Visuals. We had to make things look beautiful. The ride features a kind of hyper-real look, which fits perfectly with our theme. We used high-end graphics hardware and rich textures and models to achieve a similar look. Music. Through some pains, we got permission to use the music from the ride. It captures the theme so well and connects the game to the ride in a powerful, nostalgic way. Audio. Our sound designers created a custom 10-speaker sound system that could play sounds from all directions, making you feel like you were out at sea. Some of the speakers were designed only to play cannon blasts and were placed at precisely the right distance from the boat so that the waveform would hit you in the stomach, so you would not just hear but feel the cannons firing. A feeling of freedom. Piracy is all about freedom. Our gameplay mechanics were designed to let players sail wherever they chose, but at the same time ensure the players have an exciting time. Details of how this was accomplished will be discussed in detail in Chapter 16. Dead men tell no tales. How to handle death in the game was a real question. Some advocated that this was a video game and we should handle it like video games traditionally do. If you die, there's some penalty and then you come back to life to play again. This didn't fit in well with our theme of living the pirate fantasy. In the fantasy, you don't die, or if you do, it is an incredibly dramatic way and you do not return. Further, we were trying very hard to maintain a dramatic interest curve explained in Chapter 14 for our 5-minute experience, since drama is part of the pirate fantasy. If the players could suddenly die in the middle of a game, it would spoil that. Our solution was to make players invulnerable throughout the majority of the game, but if they took too many hits over the course of the experience, their ship would sink dramatically at the end of the final battle. This broke with video game tradition, but theme is more important than tradition. Treasure. Collecting vast hoards of treasure is an essential part of the pirate fantasy. Unfortunately, piles of gold are actually pretty hard to render convincingly in a game. We came up with a special technique that made flat hand-painted treasures seem to be solid, dimensional objects that sat prominently on the ship's deck. Lighting. We needed to light the room the players stood in. How could we theme that? We used special filters on the light that made it look like it was light reflected off water. A place for my stuff. People who step up to the controls need a place to put their bag, purses, etc. We could have just made a shelf, but instead we created bags out of fishing nets that really looked like they belonged on a boat. Air conditioning. The people in charge of facilities in the building where the game was going to go asked if we cared where the air conditioning vents in the rooms were placed. Our first thought was, who cares? But then we thought, how can we use to reinforce our theme? The vents were placed at the front of the ship, blowing back, so players feel a breeze as they sail their ship. The eyes of Bluebeard. One thing we never figured out how to theme was the 3D glasses. We experimented with making them look like pirate hats and bandanas, but it didn't really work. One witty gentleman suggested that players should be forced to wear eye patches, so the 3D effect was unnecessary. In the end, we gave up and let that detail go unthemed. To our surprise, when the game had been installed at Disney World and we went to try it out, the cast member who was about to lead us on board proclaimed, "Before ye board, ye must wear the eyes of Bluebeard." This is surprising because it was not in the official script given to the cast members. The ride attendants succeeded where we had failed. It was a simple and effective way to theme a detail that escaped us, and a powerful illustration that when you have strong, unifying theme, it makes it easier for everyone on the team to make useful contributions. This is not a complete list. Everything we did and every decision we made was focused on whether it would reinforce the theme and delivered the essential experience we wanted to get across. You might argue that without a big budget, you can't afford to do fancy theming, but many theming details are really quite inexpensive. They can be a line of text, or a color choice, or sound effect. And theming is fun. Once you get in the habit of trying to make as many things as possible fit in your theme, it's hard to stop. But why would you stop? And this gives us lens number 9. Lens number 9, the lens of unification. To use this lens, consider the reason behind it all. Ask yourself these questions. What is my theme? Am I using every means possible to reinforce that theme? The lens of unification works very well with the lens of the elemental tetrad. Use the tetrad to separate out the elements of your game so you can more easily study them from the perspective of a unified theme. Resonance. A unifying theme is good. Focus your design toward a single goal. But some themes are better than others. The best themes are ones that resonate with players, themes that touch players very deeply. The fantasy of being a pirate theme is powerful because it is a fantasy that everyone, kids, adults, men, and women, has had at one time or another. In a sense, it resonates with our desire to be free. Free from our obligations, free from our worries and cares, free to do what we want, when we want to. When you manage to tap into one of those resonant themes, you have something deep and powerful that has a true ability to move people and to give them an experience that is both transcendent and transforming. Earlier, we discussed that some themes are experience-based, that is, they are all about delivering a certain essential experience. When this experience is one that resonates with the fantasies and desires of your players, it will be an experience that quickly becomes important to them. But there's another kind of theme that can be just as resonant as an experience-based theme, sometimes more so. That is the truth-based theme. Consider the movie Titanic. This film deeply moved audiences the world over. Why? Sure, it was well executed, and it had great special effects and a sweet, though sometimes schmaltzy, love story, but lots of movies have those things. What was special here was a deep and resonant theme reinforced by every element of the film. So, what was the theme? At first, you might say that the theme was the Titanic itself and its tragic accident, and that is an important component of the movie. In fact, you could argue that it is a theme of the movie, but it is not the main theme. The main theme is not experience-based. Instead, it is a simple statement which I would phrase as something like, love is more important than life and stronger than death. This is a powerful statement, but it is a statement that many of us believe deeply in our heart of hearts. It is certainly not a scientific truth, but for many, it is a deeply held, though rarely expressed, personal truth. Many Hollywood insiders did not believe this movie could possibly be successful. Audiences would know the ending, but where better to tell a story that fits this powerful theme than in a place where we know almost everyone is going to die. The expensive special effects were not gratuitous. To fully grasp the import of the theme, we must feel like it is all real, like we are right there, like we are dying ourselves. Truth-based themes can sometimes be hard to spot. Part of the power of these deep truths is that they are hidden. Often a designer might not even consciously know they have a chosen particular theme or be able to express it verbally. They just have a certain feeling about how this experience should be. But it is worth the trouble to explore your feelings about these things to the point that you can express your theme concretely. It will make it much easier for you to decide what should and what shouldn't go into your game, and make it easier for you to explain the rationale of these decisions to others on your team. Another example of truth-based theme is the Hercules story. The VR Studio team was asked to create a game based upon Disney's version of the ancient Hercules myth. When a story stays alive, told and retold for thousands of years like this story has, it is a pretty good clue that there is a truth-based theme hiding inside it. Sure, Hercules was a strong man, but that doesn't seem quite important enough that it would so deeply resonate with people. We looked at the various versions of the story. Interestingly, there was not one canonical telling, even in ancient times. Sometimes Hercules had 10 labors, sometimes 12, and sometimes 20. But there were certain aspects of the story that were always the same. In every story, Hercules is a man so virtuous that he defeats death. And this is a truth so deep that it is at the heart of many religions. If you are virtuous enough, you can defeat death. The Disney animators embodied this theme in Hercules' conflict with Hades, Lord of the Underworld. We continued this theme in our game by having it take place mostly in the underworld until the end when you triumphantly break through to the world of the living for a final aerial battle against Hades. There were sub-themes too, such as a theme about the importance of teamwork, but ultimately we placed these sub-themes in the service of the main theme. Sometimes you figure out your theme a piece at a time. Another Disney story, when we started to work on the Toontown Online project, Disney's first massively multiplayer game, we were again unsure of our theme. We had done our homework on Toontown, studying both the Who Framed Roger Rabbit movie and the Toontown section of Disneyland. Curiously, Toontown was not well defined in either place. We could see Toontown was powerful though. The reason it was so ill-defined was that everyone seemed to already have a sense of what it is, as if they had known all along that there was a special place where cartoon characters lived when they weren't on the scene. This slightly creepy fact gave us a sense we were tapping into something fundamental and hidden. We started making lists of things we thought Toontown should be about. 3 big ones stood out. 1. Having fun with your friends. 2. Escaping from reality. 3. Simplicity and transcendence. The first one lent itself really well to online network play, and we liked that. The second one made a lot of sense. Cartoons are a good form of escapism. The third one, which we'll be exploring in more detail in chapter 17, is basically the idea that things are simpler in Toontown than they are in the real world, but you are also more powerful in Toontown than you are in the real world. All of this helped clarify what we wanted to see in the game, but none of it really established a clear theme. These felt more like sub-themes. At some point, we realized that these three things together strongly characterize something, which is play. Play is about having fun with your friends and escaping from reality, and a play world is simpler than a real world, but you have much more power in the play world. But we didn't feel like play was a powerful theme on its own. We needed something with more bite, with more conflict. This led us to play's natural opponent, work. And then it was clear, work versus play would be a very strong theme. Stated in more detail, work wants to destroy play, but play must survive, because play is more important. Was the truth-based theme we arrived at. Replace work and play with slavery and freedom, as we did in chapter 3, and the power of this theme becomes clear. It really felt right. We wanted to create a game that kids and parents could play together, with a theme that they could both relate to. How better to do that than by playfully exploring one of the primary conflicts in their lives? And so we did. The story of Toontown Online became a story of robot executives, the Cogs, trying to turn colorful Toontown into a dingy office park. The Toons team up to fight off the Cogs with gags and practical jokes, and the Cogs fight back with office supplies. The story was strange enough that it raised some eyebrows inside the company, but we were confident in our work because it was an expression of a theme that we knew would resonate with our audience. Resonant themes elevate your work from craft to art. An artist is someone who takes you where you could never go alone, and theme is the vehicle for getting there. Not every theme needs to be a resonant theme, of course, but when you find a deep resonant theme, it makes sense to use it for all it's worth. Some will be experience-based, others will be truth-based. You can never tell which themes are resonant just through logic. You have to feel the resonance deep inside yourself. It is an important form of self-listening and is also lens number 10. Lens number 10, the lens of resonance. To use the lens of resonance, you must look for hidden power. Ask yourself these questions. What is it about my game that feels powerful and special? When I describe my game to people, what ideas get them really excited? If I had no constraints of any kind, what would this game be like? If I have certain instincts about how this game should be, what is driving those instincts? The lens of resonance is a quiet, delicate instrument. It is a tool for listening to yourself and listening to others. We bury important things deep inside ourselves, and when something causes them to resonate, it shakes us to our very core. The fact that these things are hidden gives them power, but also makes them hard to find for us. Back to reality. You may think that all this talk of resonant themes is too lofty for game design, and for some games maybe it is. Does Super Monkey Ball have a deep resonant theme? Maybe not, but it certainly does have a unifying theme which helped to drive the design. Resonant themes can add great power to your work, but even if your game doesn't seem to have one, it will still be strengthened by unifying theme to focus the experience. Some designers reject the notion of theme because they say the players will never notice, and it is certainly true that the players cannot always state clearly the theme of a work that truly moves them, and that is because theme often operates at a subconscious level. Players know they like a game, but they can't quite say why. Often the reason is that all of the elements are reinforcing a theme that is interesting or important to them. Theme is not about some puzzle-based symbolism where the designer intends a secret message. Theme is about focusing your work towards something that holds meaning for your players. Different designers use theme in different ways as part of their design process. Now it is time for us to explore the many other aspects of the overall process of game design.